All right, y'all. Thank y'all for joining for episode 4 of Average is Failure, where we try to dodge pitfalls and gain clarity. I need to gain clarity about my subtitle, where we dodge pitfalls and gain clarity so that we can live a life of completion, right? This is what I like to call. I don't know if anybody's ever used it, but I'm calling it character based personal branding, right? So my goal is branding and personal branding, business branding. That's one of my favorite subjects in the world, right? But then I also have this love for character development or what have you, right? And what's at the foundation, at the heart of our characters. I have a love for conversations about faith and spirituality, specifically and namely within the Christian tradition. Well, not the Christian religion. Um, I like to talk about things like career development or what have you. So I love talking, I love coaching on all things branding, but I feel like the character based branding kind of gets left as outside of the conversation, right? Like your character, our characters are the most foundational aspect of our brand. And so that's kind of what I want us to help. It's the one thing that you won't really see taught expressly in schools. Now, usually it'll be incorporated in terms of, in an unspoken kind of way. But I think that it would do us some good to highlight the things that shape our character so that I mean, most of the things that we go through when we see failures, when we drop the ball, are usually issues of character more than anything else. The skills might be there, but the knowledge might be there, but the character sometimes is what really causes us to lose out on opportunity, etc. And ultimately causes us just to not be in right standing with our neighbor. And so that's what I want to focus on. And so in that vein, something happened in the hip hop world the past couple of weeks, and folks know that Kendrick Lamar put out a diss track against J. Cole and Drake. And J. Cole was the first to respond back to Kendrick Lamar, and then eventually Drake responded as well. But what I wanted to point out, which does not happen enough, one, I get a little nervous in our culture. Not that I think it would happen amongst these gentlemen. Kendrick actually, from what I've seen, has put out diss tracks oftentimes in the past, but like as kind of like a friendly exhibition amongst peers, amongst co-professionals, again amongst his colleagues, to say, hey y'all, like let's put some stuff out there just to take things up a notch. Let's see what kind of bars everybody can bring. So I'm gonna say something, in this track in hopes that it'll spark you all to come with some tracks back at me, just as friendly banter and a gentleman's competition, so to speak. Not so much because I have any aught against you. Okay, that sound real, real pastory preachy. The word aught. My boy Clayton used to use that word all the time. Shout out to Clayton from back in Stony Brook University. So the reason why I bring that up is because one of the things that we have lost, I would say, in our culture that I'm hoping that we would incorporate into our character. And for those who follow, right, if you are a person of faith, I can't speak for other faiths. I would imagine that this is a part of other faiths as well. But me being of a Christian, forgiveness and apologies or what have you, those are some things that are foundational to what it means to live out your faith, to be a human in this world, to be a faithful disciple, a faithful follower of Christ. It's impossible to do that without a regular practice of forgiveness. And truthfully, I would dare say I probably don't practice it as much as I should, nor would I say does most people who I see out there, even in the Christian faith, right? So there's a lot of work to be done. But the standard, though, that I want to talk about is the fact that I feel like we need to bring back an understanding of forgiveness, an understanding of apologizing, an understanding of gathering amongst, peers. If it seems like a disagreement can't get resolved, we bring other individuals in if necessary. One of the things that I'm fearful of is that the culture, when we look at social media, when we look at and when we look even within hip hop, right? Sometimes it's celebrated to be unforgiving, and sometimes it's celebrated to be unapologetic, right? So you have two differences, right? First, you have the person who's not about to apologize for anything, no matter what type of toes that they've stepped on, right? But then you also have the person where no matter how much somebody apologized for something, they're not about to forgive. Matter of fact, forgive. We're out for revenge. We're out for blood. And we've seen that too many times amongst our people, right? We've seen that too many times, especially in hip hop, where cats literally no longer have their lives because of beefs. Now, sometimes those are beefs that, maybe were taking place in the streets for real, but we know that in some real ways, there are people who have lost their lives just simply over bars, right? For those of you who don't know what bars are just kind of like it's a shorthand for somebody dropping verses in a rap song. Okay. So so not only in hip hop, but when we look out into the world, like I said, like nobody's forgiven. People aren't forgiving their relatives. People aren't forgiving former friends. People aren't apologizing. People like, what I want to admonish us to is that for us to be complete, for us to be whole, there has to be a regular pattern of forgiveness and apologizing, a regular rhythm of that in our lives. These things come up. It is impossible to live within community with other individuals. Matter of fact, all right, I'm going to talk a little bit about church, right? Even though I'm not meaning to make this necessarily theological, but one of the challenges I see today with everybody kind of staying home, myself included, right? And kind of just thinking that church is watching a screen. The challenge with that is that it doesn't require you to go into a building and rub shoulders with folks who sometimes truthfully might get on your nerves, right? The whole essence of being in community it forces you, right? Whether we're talking about a faith community or whether we're talking about just being in your own community at home, or whether we're just talking about inside of the house that you live in, right? Or whether you're at school or at work, when you are around other individuals, at some point in time, somebody is going to do something that rubs you the wrong way. And guess what? You also are going to do something that rubs somebody else the wrong way. Okay? And that is absolutely normal. And it's within that context that we learn to forgive. And why is that important, right? Taking this deeper into faith as well, right? Because in the Christian faith, even more so, the whole essence around forgiving is the fact that, you were forgiven. You stepped on God's toes. That's what I be calling it, so to speak, like when you've offended somebody, right? But you offended God in some way, shape, or form. And forget just God. We know that we as people, we do things that are hurtful, sometimes intentionally, oftentimes unintentionally, right? Which might require for us to give an apology. Okay. But then on the other hand, the other lost art is that we have lost the art of saying, hey, when somebody has apologized, or shoot, now we could take it to one level, which should say that, yeah, while you were yet sinners, Christ died, right? So to speak. So meaning that, being able to forgive before you even received the apology, right? Being able to forgive simply because you were forgiven before you ever apologized by your father which is in heaven, right? But even if we don't go that far, even if we just keep it at somebody has apologized, can we have a spirit of forgiveness towards that individual who took the who acknowledged their fault? And so some people were ragging on J. Cole, saying that, yo, J. Cole is soft for having gone out there and apologized, right? And basically asking for his audience to forgive him, and asking for, forgiveness from Kendrick Lamar. And what, it just brings up the question, why do we talk all the time about wanting men to be whole. We talk all the time, especially black men, to be whole. Black men to be agents of peace. One of the things I would love to see if, and I've seen, like, let's say, like Bloods and Crips more so, nowadays, not so much at odds with each other the way that they were back in the day. And even I'm seeing collaboration amongst them. But in my mind, I'm always like, yo, what if they actually became the foremost agents of what it meant to be peacemakers amongst individuals who are part of different crews, different tribes, but yet are now agents of peace out there in the community. And to me, in some way, shape, or form, that's J. Cole did this openly in a way that could shift the culture. This is the same kind of stuff that D1 is talking about, right? For those who know who D1 is, I think his name is D1 Music on Instagram, but he's a rapper as well who's been trying to call out all the artists who constantly talk about, drugs, violence, immoral sexuality, all that kind of stuff, right? Degrading folks. What would it look like if we had a culture of apologizing, forgiveness, true brotherhood, true sisterhood, true being willing to be up next to those who may, sometimes we get on each other's nerves, but we find a way to do right by each other, right? And when we don't get it right, we say that we're sorry, etc. What if we learned that as a community? How would that improve things like the divorce rates? Would people be more willing to get married if they saw more spouses practicing forgiveness, practicing apologizing, etc.? Would children learn if they saw from their parents the regular practice of apologizing and forgiveness? Would they then learn how to grow up and do the same, right? So it's just something for us to think about as you think about how you're developing your personal brand, as you think about your character in the work that you do or in the relationships that you have around you. And hopefully this was, I didn't necessarily give any particular steps per se, but hopefully this was an encouragement and a motivation for you to begin practicing little by little, apologizing where it's warranted. But I think sometimes really the thing that gets forgotten about, we don't even ask for it anymore, is that forgiveness from each other, right? Yeah, and what kind of change could we make in the world if that became the practice? Anyway, average is failure. Coach Vaughn out.